And thank you for accommodating our request to revise the program. I will immediately travel to Jensan and Glan to visit the dead and the injured. Bilang mayor ng syudad ng Davao noon, ang dami kong nadaanan na mga disaster at krisis. I went through a flash flood where there were 30 dead. I went through a big fire, ganun din ang patay, around 30. I went through a bomb attack in our city and there were 15 dead. I went through the COVID-19 pandemic and there were hundreds of dead in Davao City. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, mga kababayan, Assalamualaikum. Madayaw ug maayong adlaw kaninyong tanan. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. I stand before you to commemorate the World Children's Day, a day dedicated to celebrating the rights, aspirations, and potential of every child across the globe. Every year, we come together to reaffirm our commitment to upholding the principles enshrined in the United Nations Conventions of the Rights of the Child, a landmark document that recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of every young person. This year, let us acknowledge the urgent need to address the climate crisis, a threat that disproportionately impacts children and threatens their prospects. Climate crisis is a child rights crisis. From rising sea levels and harsh weather to air pollution and resource scarcity, the climate crisis affects children's lives, education, and health. And climate change is hitting Filipino kids hard. The Philippines receives 20 typhoons every year, causing flooding, landslides, and storm surges in high-risk areas. Our country also faces earthquakes and human-induced disasters like conflict, insurgency, and terrorism. Just the other day, many parts of Mindanao were struck by an earthquake that claimed lives, damaged schools, destroyed infrastructure, toppled homes, and displaced communities. After our event this morning, and thank you for accommodating our request to revise the program, I will immediately travel to Jensan and Glan to visit the dead and the injured. Bilang mayor ng syudad ng Davao noon, ang dami kong nadaanan na mga disaster at krisis. I went through a flash flood where there were 30 dead. I went through a big fire, ganun din ang patay, around 30. I went through a bomb attack in our city and there were 15 dead. I went through the COVID-19 pandemic and there were hundreds of dead in Davao City. And para sa aming mga anak at our future leaders, dapat ninyong maalala na kapag kayo na ang nakatayo dito, kayo na ang Vice President. Disasters will always happen, emergencies will hit you, but always remember, ang nasunog na mall ay maibalik natin. Ang nabaha ay maayos natin. Ang nabaha na barangay ay maayos natin. Ang pandemya ay malalampasan natin. Ang terrorist attack, ang isang bomb attack, ay may i-revive natin ang mga negosyo ng mga tao. Pero ang hindi natin mababalik ay ang mga nawala na buhay. That is why when you are standing here in the future, you always first go to those who lost their loved ones. Yung mga namatayan at yung mga na-injured o nagkasakit dahil sa disaster at sa emergencies. Always remember that when you become our leaders in the future. Already, the national government has responded to the crisis brought on by the unfortunate incident. But it reminds us of our vulnerabilities to these kinds of calamities. It reminds us to be prepared for the worst. It reminds us to be strong as a nation and to be matatag. I am asking everyone to offer prayers for the communities and those who died and those who were affected by the incident. We hope to be able to overcome the impacts of this earthquake. And speaking of preparations, we should brace for a number of typhoons expected to hit the country with devastating impacts before the year ends. Ganun po ang trend ng ating bansa. Towards the third quarter, and usually December, dumadating ang mga malalaki na bagyo. We can never overemphasize the importance of ensuring that our communities are disaster-proof. We may not be able to prevent natural calamities, but we can at least mitigate the destruction to our communities and reduce the trauma of our children. According to the World Risk Index for 2022, the Philippines ranks first in disaster risk. This means children exposed to cyclones, floods, and other climate-related hazards are more likely to be injured, killed, or displaced than adults. From 2016 to 2021, an estimated 9.7 million Filipino children were displaced due to climate change-related events. These displacements caused increased diseases, respiratory illnesses, and long-term mental health issues among children. Disasters force children to miss school, affect their learning, and their future. In rural communities, where agriculture is the main industry, these calamities generate food shortages and malnutrition. A 2019 World Bank Policy Research Working Paper estimates our average annual asset losses due to disasters at $1.4 billion US dollars, while well-being losses are higher at an estimated $3.9 billion US dollars per year. Disasters have far-reaching consequences, especially the trauma of the children. Kami nga na mga magulang ninyo, natatrauma kami. Paano pa yung mga bata? Filipino children can struggle with fear, anxiety, and uncertainty about the future. Despite these challenges, children are not passive climate victims. We hope and we believe they are energetic, creative, and resilient change agents who can create a sustainable future. We must listen to their voices, amplify their concerns, and empower them to take action. DepEd's role. The Department of Education leads a multi-pronged effort to empower students for a sustainable future. DepEd's matatag agenda guarantees that children have quality and resilient education system that teaches them climate change knowledge, skills, and values. Through the Pagbabago, a Million Learners and Trees campaign, the Office of the Vice President, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and the Department of Agriculture help DepEd teach children to advocate for a greener planet and promote sustainability and environmental stewardship. The Office of the Vice President's A Million Trees campaign is a plan to plant 1 million trees by the year 2028. And as a contribution of the Department of Education, we are set to launch on December 6. We are set to do on December 6 the 236,000 trees, our Christmas gift to the children. This is a simultaneous tree planting activity for the approximately 47,000 public schools of the Department of Education. Ito po ang regalo namin para sa inyo ngayong Pasko. We must invest in climate-resilient communities and infrastructure to shield children from climate change's severe effects. Along with other governments and donor agencies, we must give our children and youth meaningful participation in fighting climate change. To be clear, the responsibility of addressing the climate crisis and protecting children's rights do not lie solely with children themselves. We, the parents, the adults, have a crucial role to play in creating an enabling environment where children can thrive and contribute to a sustainable future. As adults, we must commit to walking the talk. We can start by reducing our carbon footprints and living sustainably. We must also promote programs that encourage kids to improve their community's disaster resilience. At this point, allow me to acknowledge UNICEF's Kabataang Resilience Program. Which aims to institutionalize the participation of children and youth in climate and disaster resilience. I applaud the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Climate Change Commission, the Office of Civil Defense, National Youth Commission, Council for the Welfare of Children, and the Departments of Education for cooperating with UNICEF Philippines. We can create a national plan to engage the children and youth in disaster risk reduction and climate change action at the local and national levels by establishing children and youth groups, providing community education, training, learning exchanges, lobbying, and influencing policy. The Philippines can lead by solving the climate crisis and protecting children's rights. The upcoming COP28 presents a critical opportunity for the Philippine government to design and implement child-responsive climate action that prioritizes the needs and perspectives of children. I thank UNICEF for supporting the Philippine government in this endeavor. Let us work together to set a clear strategy to help build climate and disaster-resilient communities. As we celebrate World Children's Day, let us remember that every child has the right to a safe, healthy, and sustainable future. Let us pledge to work together as adults and children to create a world where children can thrive, where their voices are heard, and where their dreams can take flight. Together, we can build a brighter future for our children, free from the threats of climate change and filled with hope, opportunity, and limitless possibilities. Let our daily actions serve as evidence of our dedication to mitigating the climate crisis, which is a multifaceted emergency affecting our children. Mga kababayan, patuloy po tayo maging matatag tungo sa pagtaguyod ng isang bansang makabata at mga batang makabansa. Ang lahat ng ating ginagawa ay para sa Diyos, sa bayan, at sa pamilyang Pilipino. Syukran.